On today's Apple Daily, TSMC is building a new 2nm factory in Taiwan. Guess who's going to be buying those chips? I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you. And if you want the latest Apple leaks, news and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like the video, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell because you do not want to miss our live stream on August the 15th. More on the new guests that we've added to the lineup in just a little bit. But our top story today, TSMC is building a new 2nm factory in Taiwan. This is due to be constructed next year. The equipment for producing the chips themselves will move in 2023 and production of the 2nm chips beginning in 2024. That should be just in time for A18 and M5 chips from Apple. Now, Apple's already got an order booked in for 4nm chips, which is later this year, and 3nm chips should be coming next year in 2022. Why should we care about this? Because when Apple went from 7nm to 5nm chips, what happened? We got about a 40% increase in efficiency, which means that the chips don't heat up as much, which means we get M1. Great stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Apple is still the only people on 5nm right now. I think everyone else is still on like 7, but I could be wrong. There could be some AMD stuff out there on 5nm. I think Intel's probably still on about 28 because they don't seem to understand how to make chips smaller. I jest, of course. They have got 14nm chips that they've been working on for, the last decade or so, and I think they've just about cracked 10 now. So, well done, Intel. You're getting there. But more importantly, let's move on to the confirmed guests for the August 15th live stream. That is for our first anniversary of this daily show. On the 14th, I'm going to be posting a reaction video to that first episode, so if you've not seen it, and if you're not one of the 56 people I think that have watched it, you probably aren't, you will be able to see that original show. You'll see how the format has kind of stayed pretty similar. Obviously it was back in the living on iPad days, but that will be coming on the 14th, and then on the 15th, our 6-hour live stream. We've got a dozen guests confirmed so far. You've heard some of these before. I think I've announced 4 of them already, but let's get into it. We've got Mike coming on from Tech Harmoon. We've got Saad, Apple Tomorrow, the Render Boy. We've got Arch Nemesis Tech Hyped. We've got Euri Tech. We've got Half Man Half Tech, Max Balzar, Sanchit Garg, Tech Are Us, Archie G, Saran Bites, Luke Miani, and who's this last one? It's John Prosser. John Prosser has agreed to be on the show with us, which is kind of epic, so that's going to be a really interesting conversation. These guests will be spread out throughout the event, so it's going to be a long one. We're starting at the normal time that these videos always premiere at, 12 UTC or 1 PM in the UK. Work out your time zone from there, and yeah, it's going to be a pretty amazing show. Still want to get more guests on there. We've got, let's assume that everyone gets 15 minutes. That seems like a reasonable length of time to chat to people. That's 3 hours worth already, so we've got another 3 hours to fill. If you've got a guest that you want to get on here, if you're friends with iJustine, hit her up on Twitter, let her know that we would love to have her on the show. But I'd also like to get people like Rennie Ritchie, the guys from Max Tech. I have reached out to some of these guys, Sam Cole. I guess we could ask John Prosser if he can talk nicely to him. But let's move into your questions. It is time for iCave Answers. Aiyaan Jilani asks, do you think the M1X is overhyped? Will Apple actually give that much more performance than M1? Also, is there any chance that M1X will run on A15 base instead of A14? Now, I know why everyone's asking about the A15 thing, because A15 chips will be out by then. However, the M1X chips have already, as far as we know, been produced and are just sitting on the shelf waiting. It's the mini LED displays that have delayed everything, so don't worry about all of that. It's going to be A14 based, but don't worry, you are going to get a ridiculous amount of performance anyway. The A14 chips right now are the fastest on the market in terms of single core performance, and that single core performance will come across to the M1X. The A15 will be faster on single core performance, but that's not going to make a huge amount of difference in the system where you've got 8 of those high performance chips. In terms of how much performance we're going to get, we've kind of calculated it out as roughly as we can, around about 14,000 points versus 7,500 for the M1. So we think that's going to be pretty realistic. The graphics is where the big leap's going to come, especially with those 32 core chips. Those are going to be performing somewhere around the performance of a 2060, it looks like, from an integrated graphics system. So that's pretty epic. Euri Tech asks, iCave Answers, if the consumer level Apple monitor is out, will you buy one? Probably not. I think I've got the right setup here for me. So I've got a 1080p display right up top and then a 4K display at the bottom. So I've got loads of screen real estate. These are both 40 inches. I keep mentioning them, but I'm really proud of it. And especially for the pricing. Now, the Apple display, even if it comes out, is probably going to be at least around $1,000. That is going to have, though, a great webcam built into it. It's going to have great speakers built into it. It's going to be an absolutely gorgeous display. However, I need my space. Dom asks, I've been following the Steam Deck release, and with an estimated graphics power of 1.6 teraflops, how does it compare with an iPad Pro, iPad Air, and iPad 8? Is the iPad the definitive console? So for a change, I've done a little bit of research on this one and grabbed the teraflop scores for the M1, the A14, and the A12 in those so that we can compare them. So 1.6 in the Steam Deck, the M1 does 2.6 teraflops of graphics performance, so it is more powerful graphically. However, in most situations like the iPad Pro, it is also going to be driving a lot more pixels. The Steam Deck is only going to be 1280 by 800, I believe, from memory. It's quite low resolution, but that means that they can refresh the screen more quickly, so you're going to get higher frame rates from the same kind of from the same display. That makes sense, right? So yes, the M1 is more powerful, and you do get a much bigger display, and you get mini LED in that display rather than whatever it is in the Steam Deck. I'm not actually sure. It might be OLED. Maybe that would be great. But you are getting a much bigger display. You are getting a more kind of usable system because you can use it for other stuff as well. But it is more expensive at sort of $750 to $799 depending where you are. The A14 is about in line with the graphics performance of the Steam Deck, 1.65 teraflops, and the A12 in the iPad 8th generation is a little bit disappointing, 0.1346 teraflops, so that ain't competing anywhere near the same level. However, you can still pick it up, you can still play mobile games, even Call of Duty Mobile will play absolutely great on it. You're not going to have any dramas there. Lit8 asks, iCave answers, do you think the iPad mini will have a magic keyboard with trackpad? Well, it looks like they're putting a smart connector on the back, so it makes sense that they would. However, it's going to be a little bit cramped if they make it at that size. I wonder if it's going to have some sort of overlap at the sides. That seems not like a particularly Apple-y way to do it, but there is maybe a way. I'm sure it will also be able to stick onto your existing Magic Keyboard and trackpad, even with it overlaying. I don't think that's going to look cool. I don't think that's the way that Apple would want you to use it, but I think it's going to be an option. Maybe Apple will do something where they have a trackpad that pulls off the side and you can hold it. I don't know, but it looks like they are preparing to have one if they decide to. That being said, there is a smart connector on the 8th generation iPads as well, but there isn't an iPad trackpad case. So, could go either way, I guess. Bruce Grubb, iCave answers, do you think the people who want M1 Max to have 32GB of RAM or more don't understand that Apple has made the RAM more efficient, so you don't need the same amount of RAM as in the Intel Max to get a performance boost? Just to clarify, you don't get a performance boost from having more RAM, but you do get the ability to run more stuff at the same time without having to kind of reload stuff into that unified memory. What Apple has done with the M1s is they've put that unified memory on the SoC, so it's like a stacked SoC, and that does mean that there's so much more of this stuff accessible quickly. You haven't got separate memory for the graphics, so you only have to load it into one place, so you don't need to have the additional space to send instructions to the CPU that then get sent to the GPU and copied to its memory. You don't need all of that. That's basically where you get the biggest performance boost, but also the fact that it's so close to the processor means that there's less latency from the speed of light, because at these kind of performance levels you are using that as kind of a limiting factor at some points. So if you've got these big old sticks of RAM that are halfway across a motherboard, that's going to slow things down. But also Apple's SSDs being as incredibly fast as they are, 3.4GB a second, means that you don't really notice the loading speed if you're moving stuff in and out for swap files and things like that. So it can kind of use a lot of techniques to make the most of the memory that it has. Marcin Kowalczyk asks, iCave answers, I heard rumours from Twitter that an M1X iMac is being pushed back to 2022. Do you have any confirmation or denial of this from your trusted sources? Now, I would point out I don't really have any trusted sources. I compile the rumours that are out there on the internet, look at the accuracy ratings of them and work out whether this is likely or unlikely. But from what I'm hearing, yes, 2022 does look like the case for the larger iMac, which is disappointing but as long as we're getting something with M1X, we'll at least know what we're talking about in terms of performance. And once we've got that as well, we should be able to extrapolate better for the M2X that is potentially going to be in this iMac. Hello? Travis Smith asks, iCave answers, why did Apple skip the iPhone 9? And that was pretty simple. They basically wanted to show a big jump in performance and technology for the iPhone 10, which also happened to be at the same time as the 10th anniversary of the iPhone. So I kind of think they wanted to realign everything, but then why did they go to a 10S afterwards? That makes no sense to me. I think they just wanted to get back to doing yearly updates with a number. And dump the S's, and then the next year they went and put an S on it, so that was daft, wasn't it? Travis Smith asks, iCave answers, why did it take Apple so long to upgrade the budget iPhone? Budget iPhones don't need an upgrade every year. The original iPhone SE was so that people could get the performance of an iPhone 6S in the chassis of the iPhone 5, because a lot of people really liked that small form factor at the time. Apparently they don't like the small ones now, because the iPhone mini is doing pretty poorly. But it doesn't need to be upgraded every year because it's being bought for the pricing, not for the performance. Now, the current iPhone SE has an A13 inside because it came out in 2020. That makes all the sense in the world. And next year we are looking to get an iPhone SE2 or SE3, I guess, with an A15 inside. So again, that's going to perform much better. I'm worried about the battery life on it though. Travis Smith also asks, iCave answers, will the SE Plus use the 10R body for the bigger size? I really don't think it will, and I don't think there is even going to be an SE Plus. I think that was a rumour that they may have been experimenting with it, but actually if you're doing an SE, the point of that is for the pricing, and you don't need to do a plus size at that point. So I don't think the SE Plus will have an XR body, an iPhone 10R body. However, I think they should just transition the SE phones to using that body, not as a Plus but as the SE, just so that everything's on the same platform. They only have to talk about one set of gestures, one set of how to work your phones, put the notifications and the control center in the top where it belongs now, but I don't think they're going to. And again from Travis Smith, should Apple create a smaller version of their streaming device? So Apple TV, yeah, it kind of seems a bit too big at the minute, but if it was purely for streaming, that would be fine. But Apple TV isn't. It is a multi-purpose media center with gaming, with music playback, with the Home Hub stuff built in there, with Siri. There's a bunch of stuff that the Apple TV does that other streaming devices don't, so I can see why they're bigger. I still think they could do a smaller streaming box, but doesn't seem like they need to. Alan B Unboxings and News asks, hey Dave, iCave answers, will Apple ever launch macOS SE, iOS SE, iPadOS SE, watchOS SE, and tvOS SE? I'm not sure why they would. That sounds just like a limited version of the stuff that's out there, but in all honesty, where you've got hardware that can't run particular features, those features just end up disabled. There's no need to have separate versions of the OS to go with the lower priced products, as far as I can see. If you've got a different opinion on that one, let me know in the comments. And Ryan Ballinger asks, iCave answers, do you think that Apple will release a competitor to Samsung DeX? Now, I kind of feel the need to explain what Samsung DeX is, which is basically where you can plug your Samsung phone into a display, and it kind of turns itself into a mini computer that can use a keyboard and mouse and a desktop style thing with Android. The fact that I need to explain that to a lot of people probably means that there isn't a lot of demand for it. I would guess worldwide, let's give it a fair estimate, 4 people that use Samsung DeX as a computer. I don't think there's any real demand for it. I think that the way that Apple does things at the moment, using the iPad as more of a companion to the Mac, and now with universal control, the fact that you can move things between them, is very efficient. I think the iPhone and Apple's made its products to work together rather than just being one product that you can kind of use everywhere, and I think that's the better way, because as much as yes, you could run a desktop operating system from an iPhone with an A14 inside it, you absolutely could, because I mean Samsung's Fold, which is one of their flagships, the Fold 2, I think uses an 865 chip, which has literally about half the performance of an A14, and they can use that for a desktop. You could definitely do it. But I think Apple's more about having the ecosystem of multiple products that do their job well. What I could see happening, though, is Apple doing something with AirPlay, where you could potentially AirPlay what would be on the display of your iPhone to your TV, and then use your phone in portrait orientation as a keyboard and maybe a trackpad on top to do things like desktop level versions of Pages and Numbers and Keynote and that kind of thing. That might work, but I don't see it becoming a full-on like desktop experience unless that's what this external display is with the A13 inside it, so you could just plug your phone in and use that as your computer, maybe. So thanks for joining today, guys. Don't forget, make sure that you ring the notification bell so you don't miss our live stream on the 15th. We'll be doing the breakdown and the kind of reaction show to our original show on the 14th, then the live stream on the 15th. It's going to be a pretty awesome weekend. I don't think anyone else has done this kind of thing in tech YouTube, so let's hope it's awesome, and feel free to send me any more guests that you think we should get on. Renee, if you're watching, which I know you're probably not, we'd love to have you on. Same with you guys from Max Tech. Same with you, Sam Cole. All of you are very welcome. Anyone else that wants to get involved in the stream, let me know. We'll obviously be doing Q&As and all that sort of stuff. We'll be interacting with the chat throughout. It's going to be a hell of a day. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.